Welcome back to our Peace Through Strength podcast, brought to you by the American Security Council Foundation. I'm your host, Joy Votrobek, and back with me is Senior Analyst Laurence Sanford.
Nice to be here, Joy.
Welcome back, Larry. And today we are going to discuss the situation in Syria and what the fall of Assad's regime could mean for minorities living in Syria, as well as regional stability. And this is really just speculation because no one really knows what's going to happen in the upcoming months. In the meantime, please check out our website at www.ascf.us. Sign up for our newsletter to receive notices of our upcoming webinars, podcasts, and articles. And this coming year, the ASCF is going to kick off some small local informative lunches, and we intend to focus on the clash of cultures, ideologies, and religions. They will be free to members of our organization, so we encourage you to sign up today. So Larry, speaking of clashes of cultures and religions, we certainly can see that in Syria.
Yes.
The rebel forces, and I'm going to try to pronounce this correctly, Ayat Tahrir al-Sham, otherwise known as HTS, which I think is a lot easier.
Let's go with HTS.
Recently taken over most of Syria, and I say most because the northern parts are still fighting, led by Abu Muhammad al-Golani. And Golani has ties with both has had ties with both Al-Qaeda and ISIS, but he claims he has distanced himself from them. From what I've read of Golani, he's a Salafist, which is, from what I understand, they take the Quran quite literally.
Yes. Aside
from the Sunnis and the Shiites that are mainly in Syria, we have many different ethnic groups, including Christians.
Yes.
That being said, what pressure do you think that maybe the neighboring countries such as Turkey or Israel would have on Golani?
Well, it's a mixed bag of everything. And before I even begin to assess, words are important. And so you mentioned that Muhammad al-Golani, he also goes by Julani.
Yes, I've seen that.
Golani represents Golan Heights.
Yes, I've read that.
And HDH is for the liberation of the Levant. And the Levant is Syria, Lebanon, Israel, Jordan, and coastline down towards Egypt. So when they say they're for the liberation of the Levant, he means the liberation of Syria, Lebanon, Israel, Jordan. So they're part of the Islamic Salafist domination of the world complex where they want to take over the world. And so this guy is talking nice, dressed in a military uniform instead of the Arabic dress that the Taliban have talked about. But he certainly has a history. He was in prison for 5 years by Americans when he went to fight in Iraq against the Americans. And so he was in a prison for 5 years, and these prisons in Iraq basically were training grounds for terrorists because they all talked together, they all got together. So actions speak louder than words, and we're seeing right now, for example, in northern Syria, where Assad's forces, the old government forces, attacks are being made against the Kurds, women are being rounded up, carted away to who knows where, probably some sex slave market. Murders are being done. People are being hung, and there's pictures coming out. And this is all within the last 2 days of their taking over. So I'm not optimistic that this is going to end up being a real happy paradise for anyone. But getting back to your question about Turkey versus Israel, HTS, this guy, is backed by Turkey. And Turkey is out against the Kurds. And Turkey wants a slice of Syria, and Turkey's ruled by Erdogan. We've talked about him before, and he's trying to rebuild a caliphate, which would include the Levant and so forth. So Erdogan and Turkey have an interest in subduing all the minorities. And there is a Christian minority in Syria, but like all Muslim Arab countries, all Muslim countries for that matter, Christians are persecuted. At one time, Syria was 10% Christian. Now it's 2%.
Yes, I believe a lot of them have fled.
A lot of them have fled, just like in Lebanon and so-called West Bank, which is really one could argue West Bank is a term used by Jordan. It really should be Samaria and Judea, which is their historical names. But anyways, so Turkey has a vested interest in this whole thing to subdue the Kurds and to increase their influence in the Levant. And Israel, of course, is happy in a way because they're able to pound away at Syrian munition supplies of Iran, who has fled, and who Russia has fled. So they're exchanging one tyrant for another tyrant, and so they might be a little better off temporarily, but in the long run, I could make a very convincing argument that Israel's a lot worse off with this united organization, the HTS.
I think you bring a good point, because Israel has already tried to put that barrier there between them and Syria, and taken a lot of ammunition sites. And
well, they expanded their reach in the Golan Heights to have they took over a mountain that was overlooking the Golan Heights. The Golan Heights overlooks Israel, but there's a mountain that overlooks the Golan Heights, and they took and the UN, of course, condemned Israel for that. So what else is new?
That's not a surprise.
Yeah. So and then you have the issue with Jordan, right? Jordan is just sitting in the highest, holding their breath, and Lebanon is holding their breath. But they're all happy Hezbollah has been weakened.
Yes.
Hezbollah has been weakened big time by Israel, despite the U.S. administration trying to stop them from doing it. So they've weakened Hezbollah to a great extent.
We could probably argue the weakened Hezbollah really has led to all this.
That's precisely right, yeah. And so Iran, I guess Iran and Russia saw the handwriting on the wall with the weakening of Hezbollah, and also the fact that the Israelis struck Iran and wiped out a bunch of their air defense systems, and they've been pounded away in Syria.
Yes.
I'm not a big fan of kinetic warfare, but maybe in this case it's working. So time will tell.
Israel has their own peace through strength solution over there.
Yeah, Israel, peace through strength is right.
So, let me.
While you're searching for your next question, I would just say, political Islam wants to dominate the world, and that's what this is all about. So I don't know how you stop that. You just keep on maintaining peace through strength to make sure they don't win. Yeah.
And I'm going to actually, no, I don't know if I actually put that in here, but that is a good point, because the incoming Trump administration has suggested that he does not want to get involved with the new HTS government.
Oh.
So we'll see where that plays out, but we already have troops there that were supporting the Kurds.
Yeah, we have roughly 1,000 American forces in Syria, and people say, what are they doing there? Well, they're sort of helping the Kurds maintain their independence from ISIS, and that's why the American troops are there, to prevent ISIS from resurrecting itself. But ISIS might be just small chump change compared to this HTS in the long term. So,
I believe they were, from what I understand, providing some intel and other support group which we did have also in Afghanistan before we pulled them out, as we can see what happened there. So, I'm kind of with you on not to.
And Turkey doesn't want an independent Kurdish state in Syria, because that will give ideas to the Kurds in Turkey that they want their independent state, and they've been fighting that for 40 years, 50 years. So.
Well, good. That was my next question.
Oh, okay.
Do you think that there is any chance the Kurds could finally get recognition for their own nation of Kurdistan?
My gut tells me that probably no, but my heart says, gee, I wish they would. And in Israel, there's a province in Syria that Israel is, I forget the name of it, but Israel is indicating that they're willing to recognize its jurisdiction over that part of the world outside of the control of the central, whatever the central government is in Syria. So maybe Israel will be the forefront on that one. But one has to remember the Kurds are another Islamic group that just wants their, but it's also an ethnic group. Whereas many of the terror groups in Syria and Iraq, they're all Sunni Arabs. They're all Arabs. Whereas the Kurds are a distinct ethnic minority, and the Turks, of course, are a different bunch altogether, also. So. And
there is some Shia in there as well. So.
Yeah.
But the Sunnis definitely have been separated from Sunni and Shia ethnic.
Yeah.
So then, I guess the question would be, and you said this very well, that if the Kurds did get Kurdistan, it might influence others who want their own.
Well, that's why in my heart I wish it would happen, because I think there are 30 or 40 million Kurds. I mean, that's a pretty sizable population, and most people would argue that's the size of a country.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, Israel's got 10 million, right? So there's plenty of countries smaller than 30 million. But the problem is the Kurds are in Syria, they're in Iraq, they're in Turkey, and they're in Iran. And none of the central governments of those countries want to have a piece of their country taken out to form Kurdistan. So that's the problem.
Going back to after World War II and when they split up the whole Middle East, there was talk of a possible Kurdistan at that point? That
was World War I. That's when the British and the French were the winners in World War I. So the French, for example, took Syria and Lebanon. The British took Jordan and Egypt. They sort of split up the former Ottoman Empire. Mm-hmm. And at that time, they had promised the Kurds their separate country. But then they said, "Oh, we're going to make Syria." I mean, Syria didn't exist until after World War I. Jordan, Iraq, borders were all from World War I. So.
Well, thank you, Larry, for your comments on that. And I mean, again, this is a discussion we're having. We don't know what's going to happen, so we'll wait to see.
Yeah. I'm an optimist, but I'm not sure this is going to have a happy ending for everyone.
Well, thank you, Larry. Thank you to our listeners. And please subscribe, share, and comment on our YouTube and Rumble channels. You can also follow us on Twitter, Facebook, and Substack, and listen to our audio podcast on your favorite Apple or Android phone. And again, consider becoming a member of the American Security Council Foundation at www.ascf.us. Join us again next time as we bring you Peace Through Strength podcast.